Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
The Saratoga City Council meeting, an inside look at the decisions that affect you and our community.
Good evening. Welcome to Tuesday, September 1st, 2020, 7 p.m. City Council meeting. Tonight there are no public hearings. We'll move right into roll call, please.
Present.
Present.
Here.
Present. Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the public comment period. The public comment period will be for 15 minutes. I ask that you try to keep your comments brief, up to 2 minutes. There will be a bell to signify your time has passed. Please be respectful to the speakers while they're addressing the council, and please address the council as a whole. If you would like to submit your comments in writing, you may do so by regular or electronic mail or providing them to the city clerk. Written comments must include your name and address in order to be placed into the record. Anyone who wishes to address the council at this time may do so. Come up to the podium and please do not touch the microphone. If you would like to speak, please step forward. State your name and address.
Connie Wojtowicz, 105 Elm Street.
Excuse me, you might want to take your mask off if you want to pull it down so you can speak. You're 6 feet away from everybody.
Thank you. I was not sure about that.
Yep.
Connie Wojtowicz, 105 Elm Street. Good evening. As you work through the challenge of putting together a city budget for 2021, we at Saratoga Works want to call your attention to additional spending the city will be required to do in 2021 if the charter change proposal is passed this November. The proposed charter states, quote, "The initial expenses of the City Council under this charter, including such expenses as may be incurred during 2021, such as the expense of recruiting a city manager, shall be paid by the city," end quote. Section 8.01c. While a city manager would not officially be hired until the new charter takes effect in January 2022, the search for this new hire will have to take place during 2021 and be done by the current City Council, Section 3.01. The City Council could try to take on this task themselves in addition to their other duties and responsibilities, but most municipalities find they need the assistance of professional search firms to find and evaluate the best candidates. These costs typically run from $25,000 to $30,000 plus travel expenses. The proposed charter also requires the city to appoint and fund 2 task forces. First, a charter transition force, including council, to actually plan the new government, that is from section 8.09A, and second, a reapportionment commission which can hire staff and have a budget to review the 2020 census data and draw ward boundaries, section 6.03C. Your task of crafting a budget for 2021 in the midst of the uncertainty of the pandemic and the national economic crisis is daunting, especially knowing that significant additional funding would need to be found if the charter change proposal passes in November. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Sam Brewer. I live on Lake Avenue. At the last meeting, Commissioner Madigan drew attention to the fact that the city is going to need to raise additional revenue, and she mentioned a 5% tax increase. I've reviewed the latest national and international economic numbers, and the Indian economy has contracted by 25% in one quarter. The United States economy has contracted 10% in one quarter. While I see the need to increase the city's revenue to maintain its services, I would caution you against placing an additional burden against the taxpayers. And I think that in the long run, meaning a year or two, you're going to have to deal with, tax foreclosures, and whether that's going to be a just thing that you can impose on the residents of Saratoga Springs if they can't afford their taxes. I would envision a large-scale transfer of property in the next 2 to 5 years with banks and municipalities, and I think that will cause civil unrest. So I'd encourage you to keep taxes low and to keep that in mind as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, can I make a brief comment?
1 second. I just want to make sure there's nobody else. Okay, then we are open for comments. Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Wyatowicz for bringing that to our attention, because I certainly did not know that there were additional expenses that, could potentially be taken on by the council, and so I appreciate her bringing that information to the council tonight.
I haven't seen a copy of the charter, so I don't know what's in it. Anyone else? Then we'll close public comment period. We have one presentation tonight by Tina Carton for the Natural Resource Inventory. And I'll turn it over to Tina.
Hi, my name is Tina Carton. I'm the Administrator of Sustainability for the city, and I'm presenting the Natural Resource Inventory, which we have a draft form up on the city's website. So we created a natural resource inventory, and it began in 2018. We had a steering committee led by the Open Space Advisory Committee, and we also had assistance from the Climate Smart Task Force. We had scientific guidance from Labella Associates, who was our consultant, Skidmore College, local scientists, resource management experts. We had stakeholder engagement. We had the committee and the University of Albany SUNY Master in Regional Planning Studio class spend the entire fall actually engaging stakeholders and gathering all the data and interest points for what we are going to be collecting for this inventory. We received funding from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and also city operational funds. So we've had many steps with the inventory. We started with the stakeholder meetings with the SUNY Albany class. We then went to a public workshop in January 1st of 2019. We created a draft that we then published in July of 2020. We went out for public input. I've just revised the draft. It's now back up on the city's website. And then we're hoping that we can then give this back to the consultant just for some cleaning up. And then maybe we'll be able to present it to City Council for a vote in October, late October. So the stakeholder engagement. We had the SUNY class go out and do interviews with stakeholders throughout the city. We had not-for-profit groups, different city staff people, different other types of Skidmore College, other groups throughout DEC, the state park. And the key themes from the interviews were the city and the country character, sustainable water practice, native species preservation, the need for neighborhood parks. Connectivity, trails, and sidewalks was a huge theme. And then how we were going to use the data in the end, how the information was going to be provided, and how it was going to be critical to needs and how it was going to be accessible to the public. So some of you might be asking, well, what is a natural resource inventory? And the DCEC actually provides this really nice handout. It's on their website if you wanted to look at it. But it's a professionally prepared planning tool. It's scientifically based. It's accessing a broad range of resources, including water, ecology, soils, scenic resources, historical, cultural. It's creating a snapshot of where the city is today. It has a series of resource maps as well as narrative. There's an explanation. It makes the data understandable. It puts it in context. It shows the connections and the interconnectivity amongst the resources. And then it also includes some recommendations and perspectives, things that we can consider and possibly do in the future. So the resource targets, the different chapters in the natural resource inventory. It starts with an introduction of the city of Saratoga Springs. We have a chapter on climate change, geology, topography, water resources, soil, land cover and ecology, urban and community forest, the green belt and open space conservation, dark skies, scenic resources, historic resources, and areas of environmental concern. The image on the right-hand side is an image where we captured all of the individual mineral springs. So this is really the first comprehensive GIS data of all of the mineral springs that are publicly accessible. We included narratives of the different springs and kind of a history of conservation and how those springs actually were preserved over 100 years ago. This is kind of an example of what one of the chapters within the natural resource inventory looks like. It's the geology chapter. It starts off with a narrative. It's broken into different sections. We have the different resource maps that are part of the inventory, as well as series of charts and figures and graphs, and all of the data that was collected to put this resource inventory together. And really what it does is it documents a long history that the city has of both conserving our natural resources as well as our historic resources. So the state park actually was a large preservation movement, started with Spencer Trask so many years ago. And now we have the state park as a beautiful landmark in the city. We also have different preservation that was done with the Open Space Bond Fund, as well as other city funds, and then land use policies such as the conservation subdivision, and Roland Park is a publicly accessible trail off Grand Avenue, and that was part of a land use policy. So this really documents the city and the country. So as I spoke, one of the major stakeholder inputs was they really wanted this to capture the city and the country and how important that was to our community residents. And it really shows our natural beauty, how family friendly, the economic health, our architectural heritage. And as we all know, the city's been well known for all of this type of preservation and conservation that we've done. It makes us special and it makes us who we are today. So it also really looked at the comprehensive plan, and we tried to make sure that we captured what the comprehensive plan was looking for, preserving and enhancing the city to protect the natural environment, making sure that we looked at sensitive environmental resources, supporting the city's sense of history in the city and the country, the protection of open space resources, and also making sure that we did look at how is the city preparing and what should we prepare for in terms of climate change. So what could the uses or the benefits be of a natural resource inventory? Really, this is forming the scientific basis for the update of the open space plan. It prepares and collects all the data that would be necessary for preparing resiliency and a climate change plan. It informs any redos of a comprehensive plan in the future, And then if we need to look and, in the future and update any of the zoning regulations, such as the UDO, based on some of this input, we have been working with planning staff. So some of what was in here has already been incorporated into the new development ordinance. It also could be looked at to designate critical environmental areas, information for watershed assessment and planning, and it provides a land use board resource, and it really does, as I said, provides a snapshot of the city in time. So the next steps for the natural resource inventory, once we complete the inventory right now in concert with this, we're going to be kicking off the start of updating our open space plan. We actually have already selected a consultant to do that. And we're really in the planning stage now, looking at what was collected in here and then incorporating all of that into what they need. And they're actually going to be creating a GIS tool that's going to help us in the future evaluate land for potential open space purchase. So some of the key findings I just want to hit upon was really sustainability, resiliency, and how all of our natural resources are interconnected together. So Saratoga Springs, as we know, is a really desirable place to live and to work. It's a tourist destination, and it's going to continue to have pressure for development that will threaten what we have around us naturally, because people want to live here, and as they want to live here, they want to build new homes, move businesses here, and these are all things that we just need to keep in mind. State and federal funding for resource protection has decreased in recent years, so we may need to think of creative ways of how to work with partners and how to create other ways to protect these natural resources. And it also just kind of highlighted, which has been known throughout time, but that the city's main reservoir is vulnerable because our watershed, Lofberry Lake, the majority of the lake and where the watershed comes from is outside of the city. So that's just something to keep in mind in terms of water quality. And climate change, although we haven't seen it here in the same way that maybe if you lived on the Gulf Coast, it is going to come. There will be some impacts here. It's going to bring more extreme heat, precipitation, potential flooding, and trying to plan and mitigate its impact earlier than later will always hopefully protect us and the economic value of our homes and our buildings. So I just wanted to thank the Open Space Advisory Committee for all the work that they've done on this project. Tom Denny's been the chair during this, Jennifer Hunt Dempsey, Tim Holmes, John McMahon, Dave Miller, Maureen Roberts, Steve Samuel, and Zuza was a part of the committee back. She retired from the committee, but she was part of the early stages of the planning. So I just wanted to thank you, and it is on the Open Space Advisory Committee page of the city website if you'd like to review the latest draft of the natural resource inventory. Thanks.
Thank you, Tina. Any comments from the council? I really appreciate all the work that the open space and that you did, Tina, to keep this on track and to bring it home. So I do appreciate the work that went into this. And if anybody wants to view it, it is on our city website. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. I move that the City Council approve the consent agenda as included with this agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The matter passes. On to the Mayor's Department. My first item is announcement for 9/11 ceremony. The City of Saratoga Springs invites the community to a 9/11 remembrance ceremony at High Rock Park on Friday, September 11, 2020. The ceremony will be held at the Tempered by Memory sculpture at 8:30 a.m. Please be sure to bring your mask and wear your mask and appropriately social distance. My second item is discussion and vote amendment to COVID-19 Emergency Housing Assistance Program. The Community Development Department is proposing an amendment in the response to the final guidance recently submitted by HUD on the CDBG CV funds awarded under the CARES Act. This guidance allows for the extension of eligible emergency payments from a 3-month cap to a 6-month cap. I move that the City Council approve the amendment to COVID-19 Emergency Housing Assistance Program. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes. My third item is discussion and vote to amend the amendment to the COVID-19 Emergency Housing Assistance Program Participating Provider MOU. This item relates to the previous item. It reflects the proposed amendment to the COVID-19 Emergency Housing Assistance Program within the Participating Provider MOU. I move that the City Council approve the amendment to COVID-19 Emergency Housing Program Assistance Program Participating Provider MOU. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes. And that concludes my agenda. On to accounts.
Mayor, if possible, the warrant's off by 3 cents on the agenda versus
What's that? I can't hear you.
We have 2 warrants that we approved as part of the consent agenda, and the one that's printed on the agenda is off by 3 cents. So I want to state for the record the proper amount, if that's okay.
Sure.
The amount on number 11 was stated as $405,297.34, but the proper amount on the warrant is $405,297.37. So I just wanted to put that forward. Thank you, Mayor. First item on my agenda is an reappointment of Ken Gray to Complete Streets Advisory Board. I am reappointing Ken Gray to another full 2-year term to the Complete Street Advisory Board. His term will run from 9/6/2020 through 9/6/2022. The second item is discussion and vote, revisions to health and safety policy. Due to COVID-19, the health and safety policy was revised and unanimously passed by the Safety Committee. Revisions to the policy include face coverings and masks and visitor protocols. Yesterday morning, Marilyn Rivers went through the various changes with the City Council. Therefore, I move for the City Council to adopt the revisions to the health and safety policy as included with this agenda. And that's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. We need to take a 1-minute break, so I'm going to break for 1 minute.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pennell's restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pennell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pennell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Madigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on my agenda is an update on the 2021 city budget and city finances. So I'll start with next year's budget. Requested budgets have been compiled, summarized, and returned to all departments. I uploaded these materials to the city website for tonight's meeting. Planning the budget for the 2021 fiscal year has been different than in years past. Usually we ask the departments to provide their requests as well as their projected revenue estimates. And this year, Finance provided the projected revenue estimates first in order to review what might actually be available for the 2021 expense budgets. We provided each department with these amounts as well as what department budgets should be based on projected revenue reductions. In total, requested budgets were well over our projected ability to support them, and with the revenue that we have, and we do not have cash in the bank or fund balance to float the potential deficit of over $7 million. Requested budget expenses from departments totaled $47.9 million, so actually everybody really tried to do a pretty nice job at bringing in their requested budgets. But revenue for 2021 is currently projected to be $40.5 million, so we have a $7.4 million budget gap. We continue to study and revamp these estimates. To date, there's no new federal or state fiscal program assistance. There's nothing coming down yet from the federal government, and I don't anticipate really that there will be throughout the rest of this year. The governor just released a letter to the feds echoing these concerns, and the Saratoga County Treasurer just issued a sales tax report that reiterates the same. And I'm actually going to quote from the County Treasurer a little bit, and then I'm going to read a small quote from the governor. So from the County Treasurer, for 2021, the forecast becomes more challenging. Predicting the economy of 2021 depends on a myriad of factors beyond any local officials' control, influence, or even measure. Much depends greatly on this year's presidential election, which will determine if 2019 and 2020 quarter one's federal economic policies continue for another 4 years or not. Much also depends on whether the governor continues to roll back the shutdowns or instead reinstitutes them, both scenarios being entirely possible. Even if fully reopened, a full return to normalcy for most consumers may still be far off as they choose other options rather than travel for business or pleasure. A return to normal may depend on a COVID vaccine becoming available and widely distributed, which may not happen for some time, if ever. Further, increasing protests and civil unrest in many cities, including recently in Saratoga Springs and Clifton Park, especially following the presidential election, may deter or even all-out thwart consumers from engaging in various parts of our local economy, thereby hindering our return to economic normalcy. The governor sent a letter yesterday to federal legislators with some local or labor leaders. I don't know how local they were, but probably local. There is no combination of state efforts that will address this financial crisis without federal assistance, even as state and local governments cut expenses, increased taxes, and reduced services. The revenue shortfall would still be in the billions of dollars. Moreover, forcing state and local governments to take such actions would only further the pain and extend the period of time for our nation's economy to recover. Virtually all economists agree that forcing state and local governments to lay off employees and reduce services will negatively impact the national recovery. We saw that with the last fiscal crisis in 2007 to 2009, and we know that it will play out again. And that had a very serious impact on Saratoga Springs, the layoffs that took place 2009 into 2010. So we are really doing everything we can to avoid that situation. And that quote was from the governor. To this end, Finance has tried to minimize the impacts of lost revenue on service delivery in every way possible. One avenue to do that is an increase in property taxes. The city is currently allowed a 1% increase under New York State tax cap. Yes, this year tax cap is 1%. It's usually 2%, or it has been in the past. We have had at least 1 year where it was below 2%, because it's either 2% or cost of living, whichever is lower. This year cost of living is lower, so it comes in at like 1.0156%. So that's not a lot of additional revenue if we are to stay within tax cap. I have been talking about a potential 5% increase since June, and I've reiterated that at every council meeting, and I've also included it in the 2020 call letter that went out to every department. I'm using that as an estimate only. And I'll repeat that for clarity. It's a sample and estimate only. However, at each meeting, I have given sort of an impact on homeowners, but the estimate that I have been giving was based on the general operating budget only. It neglected to take into account all of the debt that the city handles, and the debt service budget also impacts property taxes. So I actually have new estimates tonight for the council. So instead of a $60 annual increase on a home assessed for $200,000, it would be more like a $95 increase. I don't have the estimate for a home for $350,000, but if you have a home assessed at $400,000, and remember, these are estimates and they're based on like an old kind of tax levy, but they're estimates for the council and for the public. Instead of a $120 annual increase on a home assessed for $400,000, we're looking at more approximately closer to $190. And for homes assessed for $650,000, we went from $200 annual increase to $310 with the impact of all the debt that the city has. And that does not include the impact of our upcoming potential capital budget. So these are, again, very rough estimates for the council to have and the public to have if we are to look at a 5% property tax increase, which would require us to override property tax cap. We've calculated, again, an estimate what 5% would bring into the city in revenue, and it's approximately $800,000. If we were to go to 6%, we're closer to $1 million. These figures demonstrate the contribution in actual dollars that taxpayers might be asked to help sustain the city of Saratoga Springs while it recovers from the unprecedented and once-in-a-lifetime experience of the pandemic of 2020. As I've been saying, the 5% property tax increase would require an override of the current property tax cap and a local law to accomplish this, and I will discuss that a little later in my agenda as I set the public hearing for that. I've asked each department to schedule a meeting by Friday, September 4th to discuss its requested budget, and we are looking forward to hearing from you within the next few days, since I think it's September 1st today. Please keep in mind that the 2021 budget must be set by November 30th, but it will not be set in stone. Again, as I've been saying, this is unlike any other budget year that we've had. We can amend the budget at any time. We can amend the budget in January or February if for some reason we get much needed federal fiscal assistance. The comprehensive budget will be presented at the first meeting in October, which is Tuesday, October 6th, with the first public hearing to be scheduled for October 20th, which is the very next council meeting. Budget workshops will be scheduled throughout October and November. To go over city cash flow now, I'm not going to talk about the budget, but the city faces still a potential cash flow deficit sufficient to disrupt payroll the end of this November into early December. The deficiency anticipated in the last month of the year is $5.3 million. In the absence of any federal or state assistance, Finance is considering a revenue anticipation loan, or a RAN. This is similar to the tax anticipation loan that the city obtained in June, except that it is backed by anticipated revenue rather than anticipated tax collection. Like the TAN, it is a short-term loan due 1 year from the date of signing. In addition to the $6.3 million TAN, the RAN will also have to be budgeted for repayment in 2021. This will push our short-term borrowing to a total of $11.6 million. Many of our visions and goals may be on hold for 2021. All budgets across the country, personal, commercial, and other municipalities are experiencing what we are experiencing. So I just want to reiterate that we are not alone and we are not unique in this situation that we are facing. Stronger Together is one of New York State's slogans, and it's perfectly appropriate for the City Council's 2021 budget matters. Thank you. On to my item number 2, which is a discussion and vote, budget transfers payroll. Lines 1 through 12 transfer funds to cover finance payroll lines that require adjustment through year end in the amount of $36,333. Lines 13 through 15 transfer funds to cover public safety traffic control summer hires who must be held over to restripe streets that were recently paved over the striping work that they completed. This is in an amount of $2,035. As a side note, this is a waste of taxpayer money, and it seems to happen every year. There's no reason why the Department of Public Works cannot coordinate with the Department of Public Safety regarding the paving and striping schedule. Lines 16 through 17 transfer funds from wages to 207C funding for public safety police officers who are active but injured in the amount of $53,422.99. Lines 18 through 19 transfer funds to cover public safety overtime for special events in the amount of $584. Lines 20 through 23 transfer funds to cover Public Works dispatch supervisor salary approved at the 8/4/20 City Council meeting in the amount of $25,430. The new position was approved outside of the city budget with a 3-1 vote. I move that the City Council approve the budget transfers payroll as included with the agenda. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The matter passes.
Thank you. I would like to add an item to my agenda. This was not included due to an oversight, and it must be included to meet certain required deadlines. Mayor, is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you.
The item is set public hearing local law number 2 of 2020, a local law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2021 pursuant to General Municipal Law Section 3C. I move that the City Council approve the addition of an item set public hearing to my agenda as stated. This is a motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes.
Thank you. So the item is set public hearing local law number 2 of 2020, a local law to override the tax levy limit for fiscal year 2021 pursuant to General Municipal Law Section 3C. This law is written in standard language used by a multitude of New York State jurisdictions that have looked for alternatives to override the property tax cap. It simply authorizes the council the option to override the property tax cap for the purpose of establishing its 2021 budget. It does not require council to do so, nor does it specify the amount of an override. Currently, in considering the city's projected revenue and expenses, a 5% tax rate increase over the 2020 tax rate has been calculated. That is, the state is allowing only for 1% tax increase under New York State tax cap, and finance has been projecting or looking at a potential 5% increase. I'm certainly not someone who likes to raise taxes and have held taxes steady my entire tenure, but we are going to need additional revenue, so that's why I'm presenting this option for a local law. The result is an annual tax payment increase, again, estimate only, tax payment increase on a home. It'll be like $90 for a home assessed at $200,000 and $310 for a home assessed at $650,000. Again, estimate only because these calculations are very tricky. These figures demonstrate the contribution of dollars that taxpayers might be asked to help sustain their city while it recovers from the unprecedented and once-in-a-lifetime experience of the pandemic. We have different numbers that I've been showing you from the past, and that is because we have neglected to include the impact of the debt service budget on property tax rates. So the law will be circulated to council. Actually, council, you all have a copy here in front of you tonight. In a timely fashion, so you have it now, and included with the next agenda when a vote will be taken. I am hoping for full council support so that we can maximize all reasonable options and do our best to deliver the services that departments have requested. If not, then that will be my indication to reduce revenue for the October 6th comprehensive budget and work within property tax cap. Is Lisa here? I just need to set the public hearing, actually.
Yeah, she's over here.
There you are. I think 5 minutes, but who knows? Okay, thank you. And that includes my agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. On to Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items on my agenda. First item is discussion and vote. This is the authorization for the mayor to sign a lease agreement, addendum number 4 with the Saratoga County Arts Council. As a result of the current COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented impact on businesses and public entities, the City and Saratoga County Arts Council agreed to suspend the payment of rent by the Saratoga County Arts Council to the City for a period of July 1st, 2020 through December 3rd, 2020. So therefore, I move for the mayor to sign a lease agreement, addendum number 4, with Saratoga County Arts Council to suspend the rent payments for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 3rd, 2020. And
excuse me, Commissioner. I think it should say December 31. Vince DeLeonardo.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can you just reread that motion?
Yep.
Thank you.
Therefore, I move for the mayor to sign lease agreement, addendum number 4, with Saratoga County Arts Council to suspend the rent payments for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? I would like to thank you, Commissioner, for doing this. I know that the Arts Council is going through some tough times along with everybody else, and I appreciate you doing this, and it's really going to help them a lot.
Thanks, so. And I know we worked together on this, too.
Yeah, we did.
Can I speak on
sure,
that one, too?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, too. I mean, the city is definitely in difficult financial constraints. But they're one of the few entities that does reside in a city facility that is still paying rent, and this is one small thing that we can...
Excuse me, sir, can you move that chair back to where it was? Thank you.
This is one of the few things that we might be able to do to help them out right now. I don't think they're going to be able to pay us right now anyway, so I really appreciate that the council is able to pull this together for the Arts Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Oh, we have to finish, right? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes.
Thank you. The second item on my agenda is just the announcement. This is an update on the City Hall progress. In February, city offices began their transition back to City Hall. This started with the police department and code enforcement on the ground floor. This milestone occurred 18 months after the lightning strike, fire, and flooding that caused City Hall renovation and the restoration project. At that time, in early March, my department was the next office to transition into the first floor into City Hall. As we were preparing to move, COVID-19 hit and resulted in a state of emergency for city operations. Due to the COVID, the job site was temporarily shut down for 2 weeks while it was determined if our construction was essential and in compliance with Empire State Development guidelines. Following many conversations with the ESD staff and working with Mayor Kelly, DPW determined that the job site could be reopened for the contractors as long as they complied with CDC guidelines on social distancing. Unfortunately, the contractors had a difficult time increasing staffing during COVID, and it delayed some progress in completing the remaining construction work. Just like everywhere else, the construction management meetings quickly shifted to video conferences and conference calls, while physical construction continued. COVID was responsible for slowing everything down, but it never stopped our progress. In June, when Governor Cuomo unexpectedly announced that summer camps could take place, DPW worked with Mayor Kelly and Recreation Department to transition all remaining employees at the rec center back to their renovated City Hall offices. This allowed for Camp Saratoga to be held at the rec center this summer. Starting on June 16th, DPW facilitated the move back to City Hall in a 3-week period. Since returning, all office operations are back to City Hall. DPW has been working in coordination with the building department for the certificate of occupancy, fire department on fire code inspections, IT to ensure the appropriate data setups, and the project contractors to close out the project. A majority of the identified issues for the CO have been addressed either by DPW or the contractors. Last week, City Hall passed its fire inspection with only a few items that need to be corrected. It is anticipated that the CO will be approved by the end of September. The final step will be reopening City Hall and welcoming the public back into the building. However, just like COVID has added challenges to the project, it creates additional work in reopening. DPW will need to direct the public to a central location where a greeter can welcome them and ensure that they do not have a fear or other symptoms of COVID or have traveled to any hotspot in the last 14 days. This will require signage in a plexiglass enclosed work area for the greeter. DPW worked with Risk and Safety to provide plexiglass barriers at all public transaction counters. In addition, DPW will set up hand sanitizing stations and new signage to remind people of CDC guidelines for preventing the spread of COVID. In closing out the City Hall project and getting the building ready for the public due to COVID is work that can occur at the same time. We've tackled lightning, fire, and water in stride thus far. Bearing any other unforeseen act of God, City Hall will be ready to open by the end of this month. And that's the update.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I'd like to add one item to my agenda.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Sure.
So I'd like to thank you for emptying out the gymnasium, because we did run Camp Saratoga and we ran it so successfully. It was unbelievable. not one incident of COVID. And so thank you for your staff to really step up. And that was a huge job to empty that gym.
Yeah,
and I appreciate
that was amazing.
Thank
Seriously.
You. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was a big job moving in there.
It was big.
And I know, all the departments worked great together to get us in there. And it was, fortunately we had a place to go.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, it was a big deal. Even just getting that stuff, breaking it down and getting it out of there.
It was big. I know.
But luckily we're up and running. I guess you're going to finish the floor now.
They're going to finish the floor. It's getting done, I think, as we speak. Yep. And I do believe that the children were very happy. So that was great. And the parents, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure. Okay. I'd like to add one item to my agenda, and it would be the appointment of Colin Klepetar to Complete Streets Advisory Committee.
That's fine. Thank you. Make a motion.
That's the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter passes.
And this is an appointment of Colin Klepetar to Complete Streets Advisory Committee. Tonight, I will be reappointing Colin Klepetar to the Complete Streets Advisory Committee. This will be effective September 7th, 2020 through September 6th, 2022. Colin is a great advocate for outdoor recreation, including open spaces, trails, biking, and the city streets and sidewalk system. It's been a pleasure knowing Colin over the years and working with him on many important community issues. He's a great example of a civic volunteer making our city better for all. And I want to thank Colin for his continued work as a member of this committee. And with that concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. On to public safety.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on my agenda is discussion and vote, authorization for the mayor to sign contracts with RICO. These contracts are for copiers for dispatch in the police department. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign contracts with RICO. This is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The matter passes.
Thank you. The second item on my agenda is to set a public hearing to amend Chapter 225, Section 225-77 of the City Code, Schedule 12, stop intersections. I'd like to set a public hearing for the next City Council meeting. This is to allow for the installation of a four-way stop at Grand Avenue and Walnut Street. Perfect. Excellent. So that will be 2 weeks from today. And that concludes my agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. On to the supervisor, Supervisor Veach.
Running to the bathroom.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First on my agenda is just to talk a little bit about the External Report Committee. I wasn't here at the last City Council meeting. I just wanted to quickly report on the external report from Saratoga County, which was performed by an outside law firm about the 1.5 times pay that was enacted at the beginning of the COVID crisis. As you probably have read and seen, the report did find issues where our county administration had overstepped some of its authority of the Board of Supervisors, among other problems. At the last City Council meeting, we did appoint a committee to look to basically continue to forward their review and recommendations on what actions the Board of Supervisors should take regarding any discipline or other actions appropriate regarding this issue. So really, in my opinion, I think the part of this is really the bigger goal, which is to promote more openness and transparency, accountability. We need to bring back the authority of the elected officials, the Board of Supervisors, who are ultimately responsible for what happens at the county. Again, I supported the external report back when it was brought up. I voted for it. I think the report was accurate. And I think that we need to get ourselves together here at Saratoga County and start to take some action. So I will be following the committee. I'm not on the committee. I will be following the committee and taking the recommendations very seriously. Next on my agenda is just a quick update on the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I just want to also announce that the public safety building that we had constructed out at the county farm in the town of Milton was open on August 20th. We had a ribbon cutting and an open house that day. Our public health department, our probation department, and I believe the sheriff's office is starting to move into that department. And our emergency services are going to be there. So basically the building is open now and can be, that's where you should go if you have any issues with public health or probation department. And last item on my agenda is just to announce out in the southwest neighborhood of the city, out by where I live, we're going to be doing an unveiling of the Munger Cemetery historical marker. Back probably about, I guess I'll say maybe 10 years ago, I had come to the council both as a supervisor and as a neighbor in that area, and we had asked the council for permission, which under state law is allowed, of having the Southwest Neighborhood Association maintain and take care of the cemeteries that are out there in that area. There's actually two. There's one underneath the railroad bridge, which is the Cady Cemetery, and then the Munger Cemetery, which is the obvious one you can see right on Geyser Road. Some neighbors had put together a grant proposal for the Pomeroy Foundation, who had paid for an historical marker to be placed, and we did receive that a couple of weeks ago, and thanks to DPW for coming and installing that for us. So that's going to be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We'll be doing the unveiling, so I invite all the commissioners and anybody else who wants to show up, socially distanced, of course, for the unveiling. Lastly, in relation to Commissioner Scirocco's agenda number item 2, I just want to say that we received our keys today for the supervisor's office at City Hall. We're very excited about that. It's the first time since 1915 that a supervisor has an office in City Hall. So Commissioner Scirocco, I appreciate that, and to the whole council for allowing that to be part of the plan. So we really do appreciate that. I also want to thank Kevin Kling for the IT side, Rachel Petrina for our phone, and Vince DeLeonardis, he had to answer a couple of questions in there with supervisors coming into the building. And in addition, I do want to also thank our county buildings and grounds department for moving in the furniture, which got moved in today, and our purchasing department, because they let us go into their area and find some surplus stuff that the county had, so it didn't really cost anybody anything to have our furniture go in there. So again, I just want to thank you all for that, and you'll be hopefully seeing us around City Hall a little more often. So thank you, and that's it for my agenda.
Thank you. Supervisor Gaston.
First, I'll echo Supervisor Veach's comments. I really appreciate it, and we look forward to being able to welcome the public into our office as well. I love our local coffee shops, but I'd be happy to pick some up and bring it into City Hall while meeting with people instead of having to have those conversations out in public. So the first item on my agenda is an update on COVID-19. I am thrilled to report that for the first time since March, Saratoga County has no residents hospitalized for COVID-19. That's a big step, and I hope we keep it that way. We only have 24 active cases right now in the county. We had a little bump over the weekend. It was due primarily to 2 large families that kind of all got sick together, but it's very controlled, so the public can rest safe that this is not a widespread issue. And our positivity rate remains very low. Occasionally it's gone up, but as I said at the last City Council meeting, it continues a downward trend, and right now we're at about 0.3%, which is well below the 1% limit, where the governor starts getting a little concerned about things. So I appreciate the council for wearing their masks, exhibiting social distancing. The Mask Up campaign is great, and I know that we both as supervisors and our county associations are working to get some support on the federal level, because obviously the county's in much the same position as the city, and hopefully we can have some updates on that. I attend pretty regular phone calls with the White House in regards to that, and I know NACO is doing a lot of advocacy with Senator McConnell, because the Senate is kind of the slow end on this one, so hopefully we'll have good news soon.
Can I ask you a quick COVID question?
Sure.
I've had a lot of people reaching out to me asking who is kind of the oversight or point person for the school district as they begin to open up, if they have issues, or who's kind of reviewing their protocols. And I didn't know if on the county level you guys were involved at all or in touch with the school district as they are reopening.
Yes, absolutely. Former director Kathy Duncan has been hired on a contract basis. One of the items that she is doing is working directly with each school district to make sure that they have everything that they need, that she's advising them as to the precautions that are necessary in schools, especially if a child shows symptoms or a staff member, what they should do during the day. Obviously, you don't want to send a bunch of different kids that could be suffering from different things to the nurse's office. Also, the nurse needs to be safe. So she's working with them to make sure all of those precautions have been taken, and has been the point person the whole time. So if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to our public health department, but she is specifically working with them.
Thank you.
The second item is the External Report Committee. As Supervisor Beach indicated, we have been working along, I am on the committee, and we met on August the 21st. It was on Zoom. That video is available. You can go on my Facebook page, and I put a link to it. And additionally, we will be meeting this Thursday, the 3rd, at 11 a.m. at the Board of Supervisors meeting. We anticipate there will be some executive session, so it's not going to be on Zoom, but it will be available by audio to anyone who wishes to listen. Primarily, mostly what we discussed at first was the coordination with the labor attorney and whether it was appropriate to use a labor attorney that the county already had on contract or to use another labor attorney. Because I am on the committee, I won't be making any other comments about what might happen as a result of it, but I do look forward, and hopefully we will have some resolution to this by our board meeting on September 15th, and we'll be able to present that at council that night. My last item is I will be holding my next public forum on September the 8th. I will be doing that on Facebook Live. It will be at 7 p.m. and you can look at my Facebook page if you want to log on or get any notice about that as well. And that concludes my agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business from the council? Then we are adjourned. Good night.
Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.